Good morning. You're watching the Channel M Breakfast Show on Wednesday, the 21st of January. I'm Byron Evans.
And I'm Nikki Dean. And as you would imagine, waking up to front pages this morning, there's only one story dominating. It is, of course, Barack Obama.
Indeed. Pretty much every front page dominated with pictures from the inauguration ceremony held in Washington, D.C. yesterday. And some very poignant pictures indeed. For example, we can see Barack Obama's hand on top of the same Bible that Abraham Lincoln was sworn in on many, many years ago. And, of course, Abraham Lincoln was the US president responsible for the abolition of slavery.
Absolutely. More pictures, as Byron mentioned, across all of your press this morning. Let the remaking of America begin today. I think it pretty much says it all there, doesn't it?
Tell you what I like about Barack, he's left-handed, he likes Spider-Man and Conan comics, and his favourite TV show's The Wire. We have so much in common.
He's pretty much a regular guy, isn't he? And he hates ice cream as well after doing a stint in an ice cream shop as a teenager.
Baskin-Robbins.
There you go. In just a couple of minutes, the latest sports headlines with Will Perry, plus debt-busting advice from financial wizard Richard Fenton. But first, today's news stories with Georgia Calvin-Smith.
Thanks, guys, and good morning. Newly installed President Barack Obama wasted no time in getting down to business today after his administration requested a halt to controversial military trials at Guantanamo Bay. During his inauguration, he promised to tackle the economic crisis and warned that the US was facing the winter of our hardship and had to counter the effects of markets that had spun out of control. Mr. Obama insisted that the time of protecting narrow interests and putting off unpleasant decisions had passed. Millions of people gathered in Washington, D.C. to witness the inauguration. Back across the pond, a group of Democratic Party supporters met in central Manchester to watch the ceremony.
Well, we're gathering to celebrate the inauguration of President Obama, to share this experience together, even though we're 3,000 miles away, to rejoice in what for Democrats is a great victory, a great political victory. Young or old, we're just relishing this day. We've been waiting for it for so long. It lays to rest some of the real deep conflicts that have so inhibited and you could say even corrupted American political life. So even beyond being a Democrat and pleased that a Democrat's elected, we're pleased for the country as a whole.
Today is, and I don't mean this by exaggeration in any way, it's the culmination of everything I believe in and have spent my life working for. I grew up in New England in the 60s, and I can remember black people drinking from separate water fountains and using different lavatories and standing at the back of the trams. So for me today, this is a dream come true.
I feel at a loss for words. I'm so overcome with joy and pride, and it's the first time in 4 years that I've lived in England that I can hold my head up high and say, I am an American. It's fantastic.
It means America being the good guys again. It means Bush being gone. It means hope.
An elderly hospital patient wandered out of a ward at the Manchester Royal Infirmary in his pyjamas and walked more than 3 miles home through a snowstorm. 79-year-old Frederick Smith, who has dementia, was taken to the Manchester Royal Infirmary on Sunday after he suffered what's suspected to have been a heart attack. But the next day, he managed to walk out of the hospital without any of the medical staff noticing. Mr. Smith was eventually found soaked through and confused on a road near his home in Fallowfield. A neighbour took him in, but his family later had to take their father back to the same ward for more treatment. A hospital spokeswoman apologised for the distress caused, but declined to say whether the incident was being investigated. Official figures are due to reveal today that the number of people out of work have again increased substantially. The statistics are expected to show that around 2 million people are unemployed, while the numbers claiming job seekers' allowance will be well over 1 million. A separate report has also been published claiming that it's women who will be hardest hit by the recession. A young police officer has narrowly escaped death after being stabbed in the eye whilst chasing a suspect. 25-year-old Constable John Nash had been in the job just 6 days when the near-fatal accident happened. Kevin Duffy has more on this, but we should warn you in advance that his report contains images which some of our viewers may find distressing.
This hospital scan shows just how deeply the tree branch was driven into the eye socket of Police Constable John Nash. But it's this photograph that makes you ask yourself, how on earth did he survive? The encounter, which almost cost PC John Nash his life, began right here in Walton Close in Hayward. Constable Nash was chasing a suspect on foot across muddy ground one rainy December night when he slipped, fell into a bush, and that's the moment when a branch pierced his left eye. Despite all of that, Constable Nash continued the chase and arrested the suspect. The stick pierced PC Nash's eyelid, smashed a cheekbone, forced itself under his eyeball, and came to rest against his brain. Before surgeons operated to remove the stick, medical staff told John's fiancée Rebecca that the injury was life-threatening. Even if he survived, they said, he might be brain damaged or lose the sight in his eye. Incredibly, PC Nash is today recovering at home in Droylsden, and hopeful that the sight in his left eye will return to normal in due course. Now, Constable Nash didn't want to appear on camera, but I did speak to him earlier by telephone at his home where he's recuperating, and he told me that what happened hasn't put him off policing. In fact, he says he can't wait to get back on the beat. Kevin Duffy for Channel M News.
What a brave man, and of course we wish him all the best in his recovery. Now, a court's heard how a 16-year-old boasted that he was the man moments after stabbing a teenager to death. Connor Black was stabbed in the back outside a house party in Moston last August. The prosecution told Manchester Crown Court that 16-year-old Connor collapsed and died minutes after the unprovoked and brutal assault. The accused, who can't be named because of his age, denies murder. A fire has forced 30 patients, including new mums and their babies, to be evacuated from the maternity ward of Salford Royal Hope Hospital. The blaze started in a vending machine around 6:30 yesterday afternoon, causing thick smoke to spread from the maternity block to other parts of the hospital. Firefighters managed to extinguish the flames, but a pregnant woman had to be given oxygen therapy. Fire investigation officers are now looking into how the blaze started. Now, that's all from me on today's breakfast show. Please do join me at 12 for our live lunchtime bulletin. See you then.
Time now for our final update with a man who's always fishing for a big story. It's the Talking Sharks presenter, Mr. Will Perry. And let's start with Manchester United through to the final of the Carling Cup.
Another Wembley final, unbelievable for them. Of course, they look like they're going to play Tottenham. Tottenham played tonight at Turf Moor, Burnley 4-1 up, so you'd assume that it would be Tottenham. Although never assuming the Carling Cup.
Indeed,
it looked like, you know, Derby at one point were going to get absolutely battered. I mean, they were 3-0 down. We could see there the goals from Nani O'Shea. Nani put them ahead, equalled the aggregate to 1-1. Tevez made it 3-0 before half-time, and then Derby got back through Giles Barnes, and then a Ronaldo penalty kind of finished them off, and then Barnes had another bit to say with a free kick at the end, a beautiful free kick, but it looked a little nervous at the end for United, but they're through. More worryingly, they've got a few injuries to worry about now. They've got Anderson, Evans and Raphael, all, well, one was stretched off, two sort of limped off at the end, so not good good news for them. And then, of course, Robinho, we've been talking about so much. Let's have a look at this. Manchester Evening News. Sparks will fly. Rob faces £200,000 fine for Brazil escape. It's still not sure exactly where he is. We know he's in Brazil. We don't know what he's doing. We don't know how much he's going to be fined. But slightly worrying for Manchester City fans. We're going to hear from a few of them later on. Blues have also rejected an approach. This is according to the Daily Mirror. That Rocky Santa Cruz is coming to City, and they're going to give them Daniel Sturridge as part of a leeway deal with a bit of cash, because Daniel Sturridge, promising young guy. Kaká, we talked about him so much. Gary Cooks had his say on the fact that AC Milan, he thought that they'd bottled the deal. But
it's a very Manc thing to say, isn't it? Really?
It is, but more incredibly, and this isn't a funny story at all, at least 9 people died yesterday, and 100 were injured when the roof of Kaká's church, of course, he's a very religious person, and back in Brazil, in Sao Paulo, just the day after that he turns down this deal, his church collapses in Brazil. It's just a strange coincidence there. City will apparently also now join the race to sign Andrei Arshavin Arsenal have apparently failed. That's according to the Telegraph. And Darius Vassell's on his way to Sheffield United. Of course, some of them are going to leave. Antonio Valencia, apparently Chelsea want him as well from Wigan, of course, United in the hunt as well.
Well, thanks for all your work this week, Will, and great to see you on the Breakfast Show. Cheers for today. Yeah, you binned. That's it for today's sport. Pete Spencer from the Manchester Evening News joins us on tomorrow's programme. Now, they seek him here, they seek him there, they seek him flipping everywhere. Where is Robinho since he went AWOL from Manchester City's training camp in Tenerife? Well, let's find out your thoughts.
We know he's missing, but, I mean, there could be any reason, couldn't there? You know what I mean? I mean, he might be homesick. You know what I mean? But other than that, it's just mad.
I do think it's childish. I don't know much about it, but I've heard it off my family, City supporters. I think it was childish.
Well, I don't think his heart's in the club at all, like, you know. I mean, it must be difficult. It's not easy to adapt, you know. I mean, it took Ronaldo about 2 seasons, you know, to adapt to the English way. I mean, it's a non-stop game, isn't it, from start to finish, you know. It's a constant thing. You've got to be on the go all the time, like, you know.
Well, from sport to money, and financial wizard Richard Fenton joins us now with some top tips on how to deal with your debts. Very good morning to you, Richard.
Good morning.
I think a lot of us will probably be panicking. Christmas has been and gone now. It seems a distant memory. January is the time, really, that we need to face up to our problems. And you've summarised this in 4 points, which you're going to go through in order. They are: do not ignore your problems, talk to your creditors, make sure you stick to your plan, and if you're stuck or worried you can't cope, seek help. Some great advice there. Let's start with the first one: do not ignore your problems.
Yeah, I think you summed it up nicely. This is the time of year now when people really do start to panic about the year that's just gone by. Christmas is a big expense. People start to ignore things like bills coming through the post, to the point where they're not even opening the post, avoiding phone calls that are coming into the house, and just really burying their heads in the sand, hoping that the problem will go away, and of course it won't. You've got to face these things head on, take a stock of your situation, take a look at your financial position from both sides. How much do you owe and how much are you earning? And then actually put yourself a plan together.
So actually write down figures, which can be hugely terrifying, can't it, if you do find yourself in that situation?
That is the scariest thing to do, is to actually sit down with a blank piece of paper and start writing down absolutely everything that you owe. But it's very therapeutic. You know, once you've done that, you've got an idea of exactly what your position is, and then, and only then, you can actually start to tackle the problem.
I suppose it's a little bit like writing a list before you go to bed, so you've not got it all whirring around your head. If it's there and it's in one place, then, you know, you're not going to get it carried away with it and make it a little bit worse than it can be.
That's absolutely spot on, because that's what happens, of course. You go to bed, your eyes are wide open, you're worried about everything, but if you've got everything down, you've got a plan, you can rest knowing that you can actually now start to sort that out. It's the very, very first step that you need to take, but it's probably the single most important thing you can do when you're putting together a plan.
And quite possibly the most difficult second point on your list: talk to your creditors. Again, something that people who find themselves in financial difficulty probably put off, don't they?
Yeah.
Too scary.
It's quite a daunting task talking to the banks, and it's quite an embarrassing thing to do as well, to actually talk about the fact that you're in difficulties with your finances, but it happens to just about everybody at some point during their lives. And talking to your creditors and actually telling them your circumstances, explaining to them why your situation has changed, what your plan of action is going to be, how long that will actually take, will do you the world of good. And of course it will stop the calls, it will stop the letters, because once everybody knows what you're doing and how you propose doing it, then they will relax, stop pursuing you, and move on to the person who's not opening the post and not talking to the creditors.
I suppose you could liken it to if you lent your mate who was in a bit of trouble a couple of £100 and they just ignored you, didn't take your phone calls. You'd start to get a little bit annoyed, wouldn't you?
Exactly, but if they give you a call and say, listen, can I give you £50 this week because I can't afford the full 200, and maybe sort you out with the rest next month, then you're going to listen to them, you're going to understand, because you're going to be able to comprehend what's actually going on with them. Whereas if they disappear, then you can start to worry, am I ever going to get my cash? And that's exactly what the banks do. And of course, that's why we're in the trouble that we're in, is because people are struggling to pay the debts. So the banks are very willing and able to work with you, and they have very, very expert people on hand to assist you. OK,
third point, make sure you stick to your plan. Can be quite difficult again, I suppose.
The first 2 points are absolutely useless if we don't actually stick to the plan. And if your circumstances change as well, once you put the proposition together, again, you just refer back to the first two, take a stock of your situation, talk to your creditors and explain to them why that's going to change. But you must stick to the plan, and if things are going to change, let the creditors know, and again, they'll be willing and able to work with you.
suppose keeping everyone in the loop is very important.
Yeah, and again, it's very therapeutic. You're not worried about what the consequences are going to be because you already know what the consequences are because you spoke to your creditors and they've told you yay or nay. And it's very likely to be, as long as you're honest, that they're going to work with you and allow you to repay the debt at a time that's more suited to your new income position.
OK, and finally, if a lot of people, as we mentioned to you, may find themselves in this situation, it can be hugely daunting, very terrifying. You can perhaps feel a little bit alone, but there is a lot of help out there, isn't there?
Yeah, there's no need to struggle with these things alone, worrying about what the consequences are going to be. There's several very good organisations out there. My favourite is the Consumer Credit Counselling Services. You can find them on just about any search engine. It's a free-to-use service. Very, very comprehensive as well. They will put together an income and expenditure form for you. They will even put a repayment schedule proposition to your creditors on your behalf. And the beauty of the Consumer Credit Counselling Services is actually paid for by the banks, by the debt recovery firms out there, and it's actually a registered charity. There's some pay-as-you-go type companies out there which take a percentage of what you actually pay, which are very good, but it's really unnecessary if you can use Consumer Credit Counselling Services for nothing.
In the first instance, Go says there, we had them on the screen there, also Citizens Advice.
Yes, and another great organisation. They're very thinly stretched at the moment because there's a lot of calls coming in, etc. But again, a very good organisation.
OK, Richard, thank you very much. Some very easy to follow steps there. Hopefully lots of people at home found it very helpful.
Thank you.
Thank you. Time now for a quick break. Coming next, music journalist John Robb will be here with bands Tits for the Top in 2009. Plus, we'll be revealing this year's Brits nominations. See you shortly.